Attorneys Amy Lawrence and Sarah Austin. Welcome back, ladies.
Thank you.
So 3 months. So the last time that we talked was July, and Alec Murdaugh had just been indicted. We got that breaking news as we were here, so we really didn't know much about that. Not much about evidence. You were explaining kind of the bond hearing process to everybody. So what's happened since then? A lot.
A lot.
Amy's got a whole notebook over here of notes.
I'm really sorry. And if I can't read my handwriting, I'm also very sorry. But because there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that was really, I think, exciting would be the word, because we're hoping that we get more insight into the evidence that they have against Alec for the murders, because I think that's really the big question.
Right.
I mean, we know that he's stolen all this money. He's admitted he's stolen all this money. So we know that's for sure. But what we don't know is about the murders.
Right.
And so we learned at the end of August, I think it was on the 30th, that SLED was diving in an area and had a search for what we believe to be any kind of evidence, but also mainly weapons that could have possibly been used in the murder of Maggie and Paul. We've since learned that was not fruitful. But what made that search really important is that it was really close to Randolph Murdaugh, which was Alec's deceased dad, near his home within 2 miles of there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially,
and they would have to have
bridge.
some reason to believe something's in there to even send out the divers, right?
Some kind of credible evidence, testimony, something that says that there's a potential that there could be something there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, finding a murder weapon would be huge.
Yeah. Because we don't have a murder weapon at this point.
Right. We still kind of don't have much evidence-wise, right?
Right.
Blood spatter evidence is all we've heard of at this point.
Right. So, is that unusual? Do we normally have more evidence at this point with another case?
It depends on the police
Depends.
department.
Yeah. Usually we do, especially if to bring an indictment for murder of someone's wife and son, that's heavy, right?
Yeah.
And we would expect that they have a lot of evidence to support it. We just haven't seen it yet. That doesn't mean it's not there, but we would like to see more than just blood spatter.
And I think there's probably the prosecutors have a reason for not just giving it all to the public to consume and read about. And so we'll hear about it. He got a trial date. That's also in January. So,
But to be honest with you, I don't see how that's going to happen after reading some of these motions.
Why? Why do you say that?
Well, we've seen that Harpoolian, the defense team for Murdaugh, for Alec, has filed motions to compel, which is saying that the prosecutor's not giving over stuff and they have to give it to us.
Oh, wow.
They've asked for this weird broad subpoena power, which they already have, which is also really weird, which Sarah can kind of elaborate on that. And we also see they're filing all these motions essentially that would take a long time to even be heard, a long time to gather the information. It just, they still have a lot of investigating on the defense side, I think.
yeah, it feels like the motions that they're filing, they're digging through that evidence and trying to figure out what they're missing, which criminal defense attorneys do. We say, give us everything. The prosecutors give us some things. We go through, we're like, oh, this is missing, this is missing. You file a motion to
get
the judge.
more.
You ask for it, you
compels
say,
them.
hey, I'm looking through, and then they don't give it to you because they're playing hide the ball. I hate to say it, but that's just the reality of criminal law. Prosecutors never give it over. I've never had a case where I wasn't going through things and I didn't find it. You know what I mean? Where they're
We've
missing
never had a
stuff.
case where something wasn't missing. And so the way that they're filing all these motions makes me think that they're just getting to the tip of the iceberg of the evidence, and they're starting to file those things. And so if a judge can hear them all before that trial date, and not only does he have to hear them all, order them to give it over, then they have to give it over, and then the defense team has to go through it. And so I do think it will be continued probably, but
Even for the date being set for January, though, I don't know what the normal time frame of trial dates is, but is that early? Is that sooner than it would normally be?
Yes. He was just charged with murder back in July?
Yeah.
yeah.
Recently.
July was when we talked about it, when he was indicted.
Yeah.
So 3 months ago.
Yeah. So that's really rare. We've waited for
Years, especially post-COVID. The court's still getting caught up from being closed down. I think the criminal side is a lot more caught up than the civil side, but you're still waiting. And on a murder charge, you're waiting years. And people are sitting in jail waiting years. And so Alec's going to get his day in court. I think we talked
about this
that
on
too.
the last episode
Bullshit.
on if they were going to
For every
bump
other
this
criminal
forward.
defendant.
Yeah.
And you were saying with the amount of power, it would be likely.
Yeah.
So,
And I think the judiciary kind of wants to get it over with, and I feel I would like to see it over with too. Honestly,
Right.
I would
It's been going for a while.
I would like to see the evidence and have him have his trial, but also it's got to be fair, and he's got to get all that stuff. But the motions they're filing are pretty crazy stuff to read.
They're salacious, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing, and it's weird. Like, so we're seeing this motion to compel for Eddie Smith, which was, they call Cousin Eddie, that he had failed a polygraph exam. And,
Right.
And it wasn't just like, I've never seen a motion like that ever.
I've never seen a motion like that ever. With it, it felt like when I was reading it that it was a very strategic press release, just so that Fitz News or anybody else could just copy and paste that motion title and put it in there. Cousin Eddie fails a polygraph test.
And remind folks who Cousin Eddie is.
He is Curtis Eddie Smith is accused of killing Alex or trying to kill Alex as part of his attempted suicide plot for the insurance money with Buster.
Right.
So it was obviously failed, but that's what Eddie is in jail for now and waiting a trial. But so he took a polygraph test, I guess, in May of this year. Deception on some of those questions, which are just very broad questions.
Right,
Very broad.
What do you know anything about the murders? At this point, when I read
we
that,
all know something about the murders.
yeah, they could ask me that question and I would have to say yes, because I'm
Right.
sitting here talking about it, but I would say no because
In my
I don't want to
heart,
go to jail.
I don't know anything about
Yeah.
it, right? Like, for sure, but I know something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Which
that's
is a
very
classic polygraph exam. I'm not surprised that those were the questions or that Eddie failed, but to put them in a motion like that with the actual questions, and if you read the motion, it has a photo of Eddie taking the polygraph test, and then they zoom in on the computer that shows the little squiggly lines. It feels like a press release by way of making it a public record in the court, right? Because you have like this gag order. The attorneys are not supposed to be talking to the press.
And it's the gag order that Harpoolian asked for. So
They're not supposed to be talking to the press.
Yeah.
The only way they can talk to the press is by filing these motions and making them public record. At least that's what I get when I read them, because I'm like, this could have been one sentence. Eddie took a polygraph test and failed.
We want it.
Compel it to us. That's
Yeah.
how it normally would be.
Right.
And in this case, it was all the details that the news wanted to read.
And I've never also seen photos in the middle of a motion either.
Yeah, so that they could put it in the newspaper and sort of divert and defend and use the media still to sort of shape Alex's narrative for trial.
yeah.
And so now I think we kind of know where they're going with it. They might try to blame it on Eddie.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say at this point.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah,
They're blaming
this
It's
it
way
on
of
me.
their strategy.
When life gets ugly, justice is lovely. The law